What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we've got a pretty interesting video to jump into. We're going to talk about the blind well and a pretty interesting cheese that you can actually use to progress in the blind well really quickly. It's perhaps not the kind of cheese you might expect though, and this is going to be useful for getting through the early rounds inside of the blind well, for clearing tier 3 blind wells, of course, as well as any of the other levels. And while this is kind of broken, right now it isn't super broken because there aren't that many objectives around the blind well this week necessarily. But the reality is that a lot of people are going to talk about this method. A lot of people are going to be doing this when you play the blind well anyway. Give it a day now and this is just how the blind well is going to be played. So we may as well talk about it. It will offer you some benefits to actually clear blind well. And like I said, it does make things like the tier 3 considerably easier right now at this point in time. Before, of course, Bungie find a way to fix it, which I'd imagine they're going to do pretty quickly. So we're going to jump straight into it, guys. If you do find the video useful, a rating below is super appreciated. If you're new around here, feel free to hit subscribe to see a lot more D2 content. But for now, let's get into it. So as I mentioned, there is an interesting sort of exploit kind of thing that you can use in the blind well right now. And so if you are seeing a lot of people running around with Telesto, then I'm about to explain exactly why. But this is going to be really useful for getting the Seed of Light for your second subclass. That's a very RNG drop. I know some folks who've had to run a lot of blind well completions to get them. On top of this, it'll also help you get into the tier 3. And there are some bounties where you have to defeat various blind well bosses while ascending and things like that. So in general, it's going to be pretty useful. But why Telesto? Well, the simple answer is that Telesto projectiles, when they explode, appear to actually be counting as kills. And it's funny, I had Telesto on a couple of days ago inside of the blind well, and I didn't know if it was a bug or I was just missing people, taking enemies down. But we were seeing very large jumps in the percentage of enemies killed per wave when I was actually using Telesto. Then browsing Reddit this morning, I see a Reddit post from It's Oshi. This is actually the first person I saw talk about this, where they confirmed that the Telesto projectiles actually count as kills when they detonate in the blind well. So our team jumped in. We went straight in with a tier 2 right here. Now you see at the start of the round in the very middle, when the timer gets to about 3 seconds, I pop a few Telesto projectiles down. I do have some teammates with me doing the same. And when the kill percentage counter actually comes up, we detonate those Telesto rounds, and you can see that they count as kills right there. So you're actually progressing through that wave in the blind well. And this actually works for every wave in the blind well, with the exception of the final boss, which of course you do have to defeat in the traditional way. Of course, if you could clear the entire thing using this method, it would be insanely broken. But it's still very good because, right now things like the tier 3, it actually isn't the boss waves that are the most difficult. It's probably the ad killing waves in general that are going to give you the most trouble because of the power level. And we were already running into other people who'd heard about this and actually had Telesto equipped. So right here we popped in a tier 3 and you can see we pop all the Telesto rounds on the first wave. Next wave comes up. We do the same thing. I believe we went through all of the separate waves right here in around about 2 minutes or less. It was absolutely insane. And then we get the 3 bosses spawn for the final wave of tier 3. I'll give a couple of tips right here for how to clear these in just a moment. But obviously we get all of the usual time, the usual mechanics, the typical mechanics for taking down the boss right here. And we actually managed to clear the tier 3 times back to back. But it is worth mentioning, I believe there were 3 separate fire teams right here, and everyone was at a pretty solid power level. But the other thing about this is that these kills will actually count anywhere inside of the blind well. So we actually realized this pretty late on. Of course, it makes total sense, but you can just sit in the middle area where you start the blind well, fire off Telestos every time a wave comes up, literally without moving from the middle, and you'll progress through the waves. And it's as simple as that, really. The more people you have there, the merrier. Like I said, going for subclasses, trying to get Seeds of Light dropped, generally farming for gear or for the dark fragments and materials in the Dreaming City. There are also some emblems which come from the blind well, some of which you can get when killing bosses while ascendant, so it may be worth popping a tincture when you clear some of the blind well. And on top of this, there are other bounties which require the blind well as well, although any that require you to actually kill a bunch of enemies, I can't promise will be progressed very quickly if you're using this method. So what I'm going to do is let a couple of tier 3 completions in blind well actually run out in the video right here, guys, so that you can see the kind of process we're going through. A couple of tips for when you're actually at the final bosses. You want to try and coordinate with your fire team and the other fire teams as much as possible. In the tier 2, you do get the 2 bosses in the middle right here. In tier 3, you get a 3rd boss at the top of the stairs, which is actually the tier 1 boss. So you basically fight tier 1 and tier 2 bosses, but in one round. You definitely want to kind of go around the ring in the middle. So start on one side, keep taking down these yellow bars that drop the harmony orbs. These allow you to kind of do more damage. You get all of your abilities and everything back very quickly. So you can see right here, I'm throwing grenades, popping a super to take down harmony orbs, picking them up, throwing more grenades, popping a super maybe a couple of times while I have harmony, as well as getting a good few grenades out. And essentially everyone in the entire arena is doing the same thing in order to do enough damage to these bosses to actually get them killed. Also, another huge shout when you are playing in the Dreaming City or in the Blind Well. I did make a video guide to this yesterday, but if you wear the Reverie Dawn armor, each one of the mods on the armor pieces actually grants you increased damage in the Dreaming City, and you can get up to 25% with a full set of bonus damage. On top of this, you can also upgrade these mods to get newer versions which don't come with any penalties. So the base version does come with a damage penalty. You will take more damage, but ultimately there is a way to upgrade those and get a version that doesn't give you the damage penalty but only gives you the bonus. I will link that video down below. So that's just a little tip there. But here is a full completion for you guys to check out. Not everyone will want to use cheese methods and things like that, that's absolutely fine. But like any cheese like this, where it's going to be beneficial, folks are going to find out about it, everyone is going to talk about it, and everyone's going to be doing it when you get into the Blind Well until Bungie actually fix it. So I don't really think I'm doing that much harm by sharing it with you guys either. My job is to deliver information, things that are going to benefit and make the game more enjoyable or easier, or give you the options to do things however you want them to. And if it was some crazy PvP cheese or a way to get an exotic quest item or something like that immediately, then it's not the kind of thing that I would post. But this one is going to be absolutely everywhere, with it being a PvE cheese of this nature. So I'm just kind of doing my job and letting you guys know it's a thing. So I hope the video has been useful. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Any tricks that you can actually do with it, things that it's useful for. I don't know what Bungie will do to fix it. Maybe they can remove those projectiles counting as enemies very easily. Maybe they'll disable the weapon potentially. It really depends what other content is about to come up, because Dreaming City of course changes over time, and there could be pursuits where this Blind Well stuff is kind of important to progression, and then of course it would be kind of more serious issue. But let me know your thoughts, guys. If you've enjoyed the video, a like below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe. But for now, I hope you guys have an awesome day.
down.